We didn't have time in class today to go over essay format, so I've created this PowerPoint to give you some further instruction. About is the introduction. And this would be the way that all essays would begin, would be with an introduction. I've put this upside down triangle on here so that you could kind of have a visual that goes with the introduction, kind of the structure of it. So a triangle and upside down triangle would be broader at the top. So you're going to start generally in your introduction, basically giving some background information about the topic. It could be more information about the author. You're writing an essay on Emily Dickinson, and she has a very interesting life, so you might want to tell a little bit about her. If you were writing an essay that was going to use terms that perhaps your reader might not know, then you could define those terms. For instance, if you were writing about synecdoche or symbolism or anecdotes, then you might want to explain what those terms are, especially if you would be using them throughout the essay. In this case, we're all writing on theme, so no need to define that, but you might want to talk a little bit about Emily Dickinson's life, and then you're going to blend up to the 3-point thesis here. So you would tell about her life, you would tell about how she was a great poet, you would tell about how she focused on certain themes, and then you would end with your 3-part thesis statement. And in this case, most of our groups have 3 people in them, so you would have 3 points, 3 themes, but some of our groups did have 4. That's kind of the beauty of this structure, is that with your thesis statement, you can have 3 points, you could have 4 points, you could have 5 points. It's very versatile. The key point, though, is that your thesis statement should be specific. It should mention all the points that are going to be covered in your paper, by paragraph, and preferably in the order that they will appear in the paper. It basically serves as a roadmap for your reader so they know what to expect in the paper. Also, I wanted to point out that you received a packet in class today that had a sample introduction from the Scarlet Letter. It might be a good time to take that out and pause the video and look over the sample introduction for the Scarlet Letter. All right, so for the body paragraph, all of your body paragraphs will have the same format. They should begin with a topic sentence that mentions the main point of the essay and then also the topic of the paragraph. So for these examples, I'm using Robert Frost and also the idea of theme. So this is very similar to what you're writing on. It's just we're dealing with a different poem and a different type of theme. So here's an example. Robert Frost uses the theme of escape. So that right there is the main point of the essay. The whole essay is going to be on different themes that Robert Frost uses. So that's the point of the essay. And then it says the theme of escape in his poetry. So when I say escape, then I'm specifically pointing out the topic of this paragraph. So that lets my reader know exactly where we'll be going in this paragraph. Everything about it will be about the theme of escape. After the introductory sentence, you're going to provide an example in your own words to support your point. So, for instance, Frost showcases his theme of escape in the poem Birches, when the speaker of the poem escapes his everyday problems by reminiscing about his youth. So that's an example in my own words, telling how Robert Frost shows the theme of escape in Birches. The speaker of the poem escapes because he thinks back about his childhood. Now, I need to back that up with some proof. I need to prove that Robert Frost really does do that the speaker of the poem really does want to escape his life by thinking about his childhood. So I'm going to include a quote as proof, and that quote should always be prefaced by a lead-in. So, for instance, somebody says is a type of lead-in. You could have a sentence lead-in. Later in this presentation, I'll give you an example of a sentence lead-in. A somebody says lead-in like this one, Frost writes, is followed by a comma, and then the quote begins. So was I once myself a swinger of birches, and so I dream of going back to be. It's when I'm weary of considerations, and life is too much like a pathless wood. And then notice I have a citation here, lines 41 to 44. I've already mentioned that Frost wrote this, so I don't need to say the author's name again. I just need the line numbers. All right, now I'm going to analyze the quote to explain exactly how it proves the point in the paragraph. So in this case, I'm writing about escape. So I want to connect that quote that I gave back to escape, and I want to let my reader see exactly how escape was seen in that quote. So here's my explanation. The speaker of Birches clearly desires an escape from the difficulties of life when he mentions that he is weary, and consequently that he dreams of going back to the youthful fun of swinging on birch branches. So notice how I have pointed out specific things about the quote, that life is difficult, which would of course then make him want to escape. And I even kind of used a little quote dissection here by mentioning the word weary, which came directly from the larger quote. And then I'm explaining that his escape is that he dreams of going back to his youth. And so this makes the connection. Notice how I mentioned the word escape in my explanation. If my whole paragraph is about escape, I'm going to have to say the word escape in almost every single sentence of the paragraph because that's my point that I'm trying to prove. All right, now next I'm going to need a transition and a second example because one example of escape in the poem doesn't mean that he uses a theme of escape. He just maybe mentioned it that one time. So I want to make sure I have more substantial proof. So I'm going to give a second example and a transition to that example. So here is my sentence that provides further proof of escape. Another way that Frost displays the theme of escape is when he talks of escaping Earth at the end of the poem. Now I'm going to follow that same format now of providing a quote as proof. This time I used a sentence lead-in. So notice how that sentence lead-in is followed by a colon. Escape from Earth appears in the following quote, colon. I'd like to get away from Earth a while. I'd like to go by climbing a birch tree and climb black branches up a snow-white trunk toward heaven till the tree could bear no more, but dipped its top and set me down again. So then I have my citation once again. Now, once again, I'm also going to explain this quote. I'm going to analyze it. I'm going to show exactly how it proves the point about escape. When the speaker says, I'd like to get away, he is no doubt yearning for escape. But this escape that he desires is only temporary, which is shown when he mentions that the tree set him down again. Now, you don't always have to use quote dissections where you're taking out little pieces of the quote. It is nice proof to do that, but you can just really sum it up specifically. What I don't want you to do is just repeat to me exactly what the quote said. Remember, you're analyzing and you're connecting the quote back to your point, which in this case is a theme that's shown in the poem. All right, finally, I'm going to wrap it all up with a closing sentence that specifically sums up the examples used in the paragraph and also connects back to the thesis point. And so here's the example of that. Overall, Frost beautifully incorporates the theme of escape in Birches when he writes of the speaker's desire to escape life's hardships in his childhood memories, and also when he mentions temporarily getting away from Earth. So my paragraph had two examples in my own words, and I listed those here just very briefly, that he wanted to escape life's hardships in his childhood memories, and also that he wants to get away from Earth. So I just touched on those briefly. All right, here is the finished product, which you can read on your own. And also, you have another example that I gave to you in the packet on the Scarlet Letter. So if you wanted to see another paragraph, you could look at the Scarlet Letter example. And then a few other tips. Remember to add parenthetical citations after your quotes. See the line numbers cited in the example paragraph if you need to see what that looks like. Remember to use present tense verbs. That basically is used in any time you're writing about literature, because if I were to go reread the poem by Robert Frost, those same things are still happening. If I were to read an Emily Dickinson poem, they're still going to be exactly the same, and that's called literary present tense. So really no past tense verbs in this unless they were inside of quotation marks as part of a quote. Do not use contractions. Those are conversational, and this is formal writing. And then do not use any first or second person pronouns. So I hope that you have found this presentation helpful, and make sure that you can go back if you'd like and look at the body paragraph sample and also the packet that I sent home. It has got sample paragraphs in it as well. Thank you.